Most people think intelligence is about noticing more. But sometimes, the people who miss the obvious things are the ones carrying the heaviest thoughts inside their minds. Have you ever met someone who forgets simple details, misses signals everyone else catches, walks past emotional tension in a room like it doesn't even exist? People call them careless, distracted, disconnected. But psychology says something deeper may be happening. Sometimes the brain ignores small things because it's already busy surviving something bigger. And the strange part? Most people never notice that hidden battle. Imagine this. Someone is sitting with friends at dinner. Everyone laughs at a small joke. Everyone notices the awkward silence after someone says something uncomfortable. Everyone except one person. They smile late. They miss the shift in energy. They stare at their phone for a second too long. People instantly assume they're rude, weird, uninterested. But what nobody sees is the storm happening inside their head. Because while everyone else is focused on the moment, their mind is somewhere else entirely. Replaying conversations, overthinking tomorrow, fighting anxiety, trying not to collapse emotionally in public. And when the brain becomes overloaded like that, something strange happens. It stops prioritizing the outside world. Psychologists sometimes describe attention like a flashlight. You can only point it at so many things before the battery drains. That's why emotionally exhausted people often miss details that others notice immediately. Not because they're stupid, not because they don't care, but because their mental energy is already occupied. And honestly, this happens more than people realize. Some people are so busy managing invisible stress that they stop noticing visible reality. A missed text tone, a facial expression, a warning sign, even opportunities. The mind becomes selective. It quietly filters the world down to only what feels emotionally necessary. Everything else becomes background noise, and over time, people begin misunderstanding them completely. Because society rewards people who appear alert, socially sharp, emotionally available. But it rarely asks what someone might be carrying internally. Here's the hidden contradiction. The people who notice everything emotionally often miss things physically, and the people who appear calm externally may actually be overstimulated internally. That's the paradox nobody talks about. Some minds become so deep in thought that reality starts passing by unnoticed. You've probably seen it before. Someone staring out a window during a conversation. Someone forgetting what was just said 2 seconds ago. Someone walking into a room and instantly looking mentally distant. Others assume arrogance. But internally, that person may simply be overwhelmed because the brain has limits. And when emotional pressure increases, awareness narrows. Now imagine a completely fictional situation. Someone wakes up every morning already mentally exhausted. Nothing dramatic happened overnight. No crisis. No visible problem. But their mind never truly rests. They spend the day trying to function normally. At work, people notice they forget small instructions. Friends notice they zone out during conversations. Family notices they miss obvious emotional cues. Eventually, people stop being patient. They start saying things like, "You never pay attention. You're always distracted. You don't care." But none of those accusations are actually true. The person cares deeply. Too deeply, maybe. Their mind is simply overloaded with silent emotional traffic nobody else can see. And that's the dangerous part about invisible psychological struggles. From the outside, they often look like personality flaws. Sometimes people who miss obvious things are not absent-minded. They're emotionally consumed. And there's a difference. A huge difference. Because absent-minded people forget moments. Emotionally overwhelmed people lose presence. Their body stays in the room, but their mind keeps running somewhere else. Toward fear, toward regret, toward survival. And eventually they become disconnected from the present without even realizing it. What makes this even sadder is how quickly people judge behavior they don't understand. Humans naturally create stories about others. If someone misses details, we assume they're careless. If someone seems distracted, we assume they're selfish. But psychology constantly shows that behavior is often a symptom, not the full truth. Sometimes the quietest struggles create the loudest misunderstandings. And some people spend years being judged for battles. They never explain there's another side to this psychology that almost nobody talks about. Sometimes people miss obvious things because their brain learned to focus on danger instead of details, especially after long periods of stress, emotional instability, or constant pressure. The mind adapts in strange ways. It stops looking for small social signals. and start scanning for emotional survival instead. That's why some people can instantly sense tension, but completely forget practical things. Their awareness becomes emotional rather than observational. And honestly, this confuses people around them. Because externally, they may look disconnected, but internally, they are hyper-aware. Just not of the same things everyone else notices. Think about how exhausting that becomes over time. Trying to appear normal while your mind constantly drifts somewhere heavy. Trying to focus while your thoughts pull you into memories, fears, unfinished emotions. It's like living with dozens of browser tabs open in your brain every second. Eventually, concentration weakens. Presence weakens. Even joy weakens. And slowly, life starts feeling distant. Not because someone wants to disconnect from reality, but because their mental energy keeps getting pulled inward. Here's what's fascinating though. Many people who miss details are actually incredibly thoughtful individuals. They think deeply, feel deeply, analyze deeply. But deep internal processing comes with a cost. The brain cannot fully absorb the external world while simultaneously drowning in the internal one. So something gets sacrificed, usually attention, usually presence, usually the small moments everyone else catches naturally. And sadly, the world often punishes people for struggles it cannot physically see. Imagine another fictional scenario. Someone is sitting in a meeting. Everyone else notices confidence, structure, organization, but this person notices something different. The pressure in the room, the fear of judgment, the emotional distance between people. Their brain automatically absorbs emotional undercurrents instead of surface information. So later, when they forget simple instructions, people assume incompetence. But internally, their attention was consumed by something much heavier. The emotional atmosphere. The tension nobody admitted existed. And this happens constantly in human behavior. People are judged by visible performance, while invisible mental battles remain completely ignored. The truth is, human attention is emotional before it is logical. What the mind fears, it prioritizes. What the heart carries, the eyes often miss. That's why emotionally burdened people sometimes appear detached from reality. Not because they lack awareness, but because their awareness is trapped somewhere deeper. And maybe that explains why some people feel exhausted even after doing almost nothing physically. Mental overload is invisible work. Overthinking is invisible work. Emotional survival is invisible work. The body may stay still, while the mind runs marathons nobody sees. And maybe that's why understanding matters more than quick judgment. Because you never truly know what someone's mind is carrying when they seem distracted, forgetful, or emotionally distant. Sometimes they are careless, but sometimes they are silently fighting thoughts that consume most of their energy before the day even begins. And those are two very different realities. What's interesting is that many people eventually become harsh toward themselves too. They start believing the labels others give them. Lazy, unfocused, disconnected. But deep down, they often know something else is happening. They feel mentally tired in ways they can't explain. They crave peace but struggle to stay present long enough to feel it. And perhaps the saddest part is that many of them become experts at hiding it. They laugh normally, work normally, respond normally, while internally feeling miles away from the moment they're standing in. Maybe the real question isn't, why do some people miss obvious things? Maybe the deeper question is, what invisible weight forces the human mind to stop noticing the world around it? Because sometimes the people who seem least aware externally are the ones fighting the loudest battles internally. And most people never notice it until it's too late.